This is Men in Labor.
Heavy load it up.
So Mark Baldwin Construction Design.
Yeah.
Mark Baldwin Construction Design, Sarasota.
Yep.
County?
I mostly stick to county. Yeah.
Nothing outside of the county?
I just don't. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I hate to sound like a princess about it, but driving out to Longboat or any of the other islands is.
Aren't
just,
we all princesses?
Yeah. It's just when you got to drive an hour because you forgot something, on the key. Because we spent like 7 years on Siesta,
Right.
and people are like, you want to go to the beach? And I'm like, no, I've stared at it for 7 years. I don't need to go out there anymore.
It's funny how that works.
Yeah.
You want something that's normal, right? So
Yeah.
the beach is exclusive and luxury, and you're ready for just to go run in
Air conditioning.
a field.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with comedy. People would
Yeah.
be like, when you come home, if you're on the road all the time doing stand-up,
Yeah.
what you want to do when you get home is like go bowling.
Yeah.
Just something
Yeah.
different,
You want
right?
something
Because we just
basic.
all want different.
Yeah.
So you do design build, and you're one of my students.
Yep.
How long have you been coming to my classes?
Well, I mean, I did the first 3 years. Well, it was like 6 years, I guess.
Six
Yeah, 6 years. Yeah.
of sitting in class, which
Yeah.
is a short period of time. I have guys that have been sitting in class since 97.
Yeah.
So they could have been doctors. I
Yeah.
always say that this amount of time with continuing education you could have been a friggin' doctor
Yeah.
by now. It's amazing how much time
Yeah.
I've had. No teacher has a student since 1997.
Yeah. Well,
Unless
I
you're doing karate.
I was licensed in 04. So now I've been, let's see, that means I went to you and for all those.
Your first year probably was 06.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember the first time I was in your class too, because I never had to deal with, sitting with a bunch of other contractors. I mean, I didn't really know any of them. And I walk in, I'm 28 at the time.
Yeah.
And every guy in there is like my senior for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I
In
was like,
06, you had guys in there, they were 50.
yeah. Yeah. I think by far, I was definitely the youngest guy in there.
And I would point it out.
Yeah. Probably.
Because, several reasons. Number one, easy target.
Yeah.
Number two, it was something to have younger people come in because we were even then, even in 04, people say, oh, we have a labor shortage.
Yeah.
How long has that been going on?
It's been going on a long time. But
Since I was doing it in the 80s, since nobody wanted to be. And the problem, I think, is the perception, the blueprint. It's amazing. There we go. We should have a blueprint for the business on how to be in the business and graduate to the different levels. See, now you're a princess, but before.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you were
it scared the crap out of me.
You were just a serf.
Yeah, I didn't know.
For.
Even though I was licensed, I still didn't know anything. You know what I mean? Like that was the hard part because, I tell people all the time, I say, just because you can pass that test doesn't mean you can build. And just because you can build doesn't mean you can pass that test.
It's not a skill test.
Yeah. And the thing that's the hardest thing about construction now is that, anybody that's looking to go into it, I always tell them, I said, if you think that what you're going to be doing is swinging a hammer or doing something like that, that'll be the last thing that you're doing. I said, because nowadays there's so many rules, there's so much bureaucracy. And even though we've, unified the building code, in 04, we still have, certain areas that do things totally different. Zoning regulations are different. And, like Longboat, right? If you try to submit a renovation plan for a condo there, they make you separate out your MEPs, whereas Sarasota County's like, no, just put it all on one. We're good,
That is something that I talk about in class, and it'll probably be too much in the weeds for our...
Yeah.
Because really, I think a lot of people want to hear some things about you.
Sure.
About how you hire people, your projects. But I think also it's important to say that what you just said is true. And if the state of Florida is listening, which I don't know, but if they are listening, they unified the code, but they didn't unify the process.
Right.
So if you do go to Sarasota County and you look at their website, if it's a building department website, it's different than Charlotte County's.
Correct.
They should have all been, I mean, how hard would that have been to have one web designer and to distribute that to every county, every city, so everything looked the same for each contractor when they came onto the site, so there was uniformity. But they didn't do that. Now I hear that complaint is that it's not really about the code anymore. It's about interpretation. It's about process.
Yeah.
We have to do what Marcus Lemonis tells us.
Yeah.
People process product. You ever watch that show?
I have not.
Oh my God. I forgot what the name of it was. I watched it all the time, but he would come into a business and he would streamline it. And it was people process product.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's true, right?
Well, I mean, I think, if I was to say something about people coming into the industry, I would say, don't get frustrated with the fact that you don't know something, because it's always going to change. I mean, I've been doing this 20 years licensed and longer than that, in the trades. And, you can have one guy that's been in there for 20 years and he's always the same way, Jerome the metronome, when it comes to way he reviews plans, and then the next guy says, oh, no, we don't read the code that way. We read it this way now. I mean, I remember the funniest one. This is probably the craziest thing I ever had. And I hope Sarasota County's listening on this one. But anyways, we were renovating. We got, when you get into a condo building and you're doing renovations or something, and I'm a small guy, but
right.
It's almost like dominoes, like the next person hears about you and the next person and the next, oh, you did a great job for so-and-so and now you're in there, right? So we had just finished up one condo and literally signed up another customer to start doing another one. And we had submitted the plans and they were rejected and they said, these need to be stamped and sealed. And I said, what? And they're like, this is just, I said, this is just a renovation. We're not, relocating any load bearing anything. This is really just, aesthetics. Anyway, they kicked it back and they said the rule was, and I looked it up. It's like a 1-sentence regulation that says any work being done in excess of $25,000 in a commercial environment requires signed, sealed, stamped architectural drawings, right? Right? And so at the time, I think it was Mark Ceppaletto was head of the building department. I got on the phone with him and I said, this rule makes no sense, man. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, is it the permitted work? Is it the total work? Or how do you calculate that? And he goes, what's the job in total? And I said, okay, so if I get a $10,000 toilet and a $15,000 faucet, I need signed, sealed, stamped architectural drawings to put that in? And he gets quiet, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, there you go.
And is that a county?
Well, yeah,
it doesn't supersede.
Well, yeah, it's
the state of Florida.
Well, I believe it's the county. Yeah, it was the county. Yeah.
See, anytime this happens, we have, to not be so boring about this, we have lawyers,
right?
Well, that are teachers in our class, and they're construction board certified. I never get involved. Yeah. I say because what happens is to a contractor and almost every human, we don't want to call lawyers.
Right.
The first reason is we don't want to spend any money.
Right.
I don't want to spend any money on a lawyer. They're going to charge me an hourly rate.
Right.
Good thing about our guys, they will do this. They will listen to you for an hour.
Right.
But the great thing about them is they're supportive of contractors. Because I think a lot of guys somehow just decide, I'm going to make a phone call to the state,
right,
or talk to an inspector and try to resolve it myself. It's like trying to talk to the IRS.
Yeah.
Would you?
Well, I mean, isn't
it better getting an accountant?
I mean, in this instance,
because what happens, Mark, when you go and you make that statement to this inspector,
right,
and he gets a little squirrely on you,
right?
Now what?
Well, I mean, again,
is he happy later on with you, even if you proved him wrong? Good job.
Well, I mean, the thing is that it's like, when you're right, you're right. It doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? You have but the thing is that just if, to put the end on that, but there were enough complaints apparently between the time that I had kind of done my thing and, before I'd even gotten approval. And they apparently said, well, now we're leaving it at the discretion of the plans examiner as to whether or not it meets that threshold.
You kick it up.
Right. And so,
you can go all the way to the Florida Building Commission if you wanted to. But I'm on your side. If you're right, you're right. But let's have someone else deliver the right message.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm really saying is that, for a new contractor or somebody trying to get started and they're dealing with the frustrations and stuff, that's the kind of stuff you can come across. And, imagine you had bid the job and you literally just did one. Mm-hmm. And now you have to explain to the homeowner, I'm sorry, now we have this whole other, thing that you have to deal with. It can be frustrating. It makes you look silly too,
And I think this is the biggest headache that I hear about in construction. And I'm sure because, look, we have people in Ohio listening to this.
Yeah.
At least one. And one in Australia. We have this weird kind of audience, right? So, because podcasts go everywhere.
Yeah.
So just to keep it in a general sense, right? Because Sarasota, I know, is super important to both of us.
Yeah.
But no one knows these people.
Yeah.
And if you were listening to a podcast about construction, what do you think that you would want to hear if you were like doing it for enjoyment? Do you listen to radio on the job? We used to listen to radio and songs, music.
Yeah, I mean, like...
and talk radio, like Stern back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, most of the guys on the job site, it's really one of the
Do you think they'll listen to this?
Yeah, I think they would. Yeah.
But what do we have to say about it that would make them listen, is my question. Are they interested in improving their life, their career?
I think that probably the
entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that would, that I would want to, learn from a show like that is that doing what I do or what, what you do, like there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great thing to do, and there's plenty of money to be made. I mean, you and I grew up in an era where, you were almost looked down on if you didn't go to college, And so going into construction, I remember just a quick story. I was laying tile and I was in college, and I remember I'd asked my teacher, hey, I'm going to get a degree in something. What am I going to make? And he was kind of like, oh, if you're with a company this long or whatever, you'll make X amount of money. And I looked at him, and after he'd gotten to about 10 years, he said, you might make, over 100. Now, granted, this was like 94 or 93. Yeah. And I said, I'm doing that now. Laying tile.
As you went to college, and you were working in the business, and you were making over $100,000.
Yeah.
Part time.
Yeah. Part time. Yeah. Because there was we'd have jobs.
And why were you going to college?
My mom, mostly.
So pressure from the outside forces.
Yeah. I mean, she was straight out of high school, right into summer school.
She was not proud of the fact that you were going to be in construction.
Correct.
That's horrible.
Yeah.
What do you want to be, a ditch digger? Remember that?
Right.
That's what they would say.
Yeah.
And then I would be like, what an underground utility contractor makes?
Yeah.
That guy.
Yeah.
That guy runs everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a great industry. I mean,
and that's what I was saying, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
But my thought is that blueprint of, hey, you could start as a ditch digger, right?
Right.
And move up, because everybody's looking for leadership.
Yeah.
Now, some guys don't want to lead. Some guys want to just do the ditch digging. They don't see the future, which is the bad knees, low pay.
Right.
Not really getting ahead, and maybe ditch digging goes away because a machine comes in.
Well,
they have to think about getting out of the ditch, and is there a way that we could teach? Do you do that, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, I have noticed that, the older I get, and I'm 50 now, is it took a while to kind of realize that some people are cut out for construction and some aren't. It is a very different industry. I mean, what
do you think the number one requirement is?
You have to have a solid work ethic. You have to, if you think you're going to go into work and you're going to mail it in every day, you're not going to cut it. You know what I mean? You have to have multiple speeds. You have to know how to, problem solve, and there's nothing wrong with people that want to have a different career that's more relaxed or, a little less stress, because construction can obviously be extremely stressful.
Right.
But I would say that, if you're going to do it, I won't lie, it's not an easy lifestyle.
So a guy who doesn't want to mail it in.
Yeah.
And is interested in construction, right?
Yeah.
Also, I believe what I've seen over the years is you really have to be proud of the work.
Yes.
And what you're doing. I think that's any business. If there's something that I want to do, money has always been a motivation for me.
Yeah.
But I realize that there's a limitation to that, because I don't want everything. And that's what money's for. I just want to make sure I paid my bills. But if you're in construction, like back in the day, I think I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now.
Yeah.
Which is a shame, but that's everything as you age.
Yeah.
But being on the job site with the old timers, my great uncles were on the job at that time.
Yeah.
And listening to what they believed.
Yeah.
You were like laughing about it.
Yeah.
You weren't thinking, you're going out tonight. Yeah. You're drinking. You're like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, there's
you were just not.
There's
paying attention.
There's a darker side of the construction of the guys that are.
But there were guys that were going to stay past me.
Yeah.
And they were going to finish a job, or they had other ideas on how to get a bigger job, or or to do something great, like, build something that meant something. Like my son talks like that, and he's only 25.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the same way in that regard. Like, I've had plenty of opportunities when it comes to building where I could have just, gone the way of the track house. I mean, I've had investors come to me and say, hey, would you like to build these 500 homes, and just manage that? And, something internally was like, I'm sure I would do really well with that, but I just can't put my name on that. I have to be able to, like, I want my hands in it, and I want to make sure that it looks good. I can walk away from it and say, there's not going to be any problems. I mean, like, for instance, I built a house for a lovely old couple in Palmetto about 7 years ago. And the one thing I was most proud of, and this was a huge house. I mean, it was like, I shouldn't say huge compared to some, but for me, it was like 6,000 square feet.
Beautiful. It's a huge, yeah.
And it was right on the water. And, we got it done. And, you're always expecting callbacks at some point. Maybe somebody's going to be like, something's a little off, a handle's a little loose.
Right.
I never got a callback, not in 7 years. And the funny thing was I found that out maybe about a year ago, because unfortunately the gentleman...
Did they know callbacks were available?
No, they do. So, they were a lovely couple, but unfortunately the gentleman passed away. He was a lovely man, but he passed away, and she called me like, hey, I've got to get the house kind of cleaned up, to sell because we're going to move. But she was like, oh no, we've never had any problems with the house. It's wonderful.
And that's a tribute to you.
Well, I mean, at the risk
and your subs.
Yeah.
I mean, how much of actual work did you do on that house?
Believe it or not, I did all of the woodwork in it.
So trim.
Yeah, all the trim, the baseboard, the crown. I hung all the doors.
Is that your primary skill?
Yeah, my first trade, like, I started doing carpentry at 13, and we built all the railing from scratch out of like African sapele.
Wow.
And it's like curved. And
now, someone had to introduce you to African sapele.
it was my dad.
So someone is there guiding you. Again, this is a story that I hear a lot now. This is our fourth podcast, but I've been talking to contractors since '97. So you hear this. It's a family thing.
Yeah.
I mean, construction without the family backing is harder.
Yes.
Because there is more than just that one generation learning. It's a deeper learning because sometimes you do want to go back to an older way to build something.
Yes, absolutely.
Like chisels.
Yeah. Instead of what we have now, what is that controlled obsolescence,
Yeah. And the foam products that I can't stand because, I mean, I guess there's a place for that, right?
Yeah.
There's a place for that.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly is. I mean, there's a buyer for everything, But I think,
how long will it be there? Is it, like you said, if you're proud of what you built and you're looking at it and there's no callbacks and something made from foam and stucco, is that going to really?
I mean, I can certainly say that craftsmanship is going away. As far as like custom stuff that's like a one-off. You and I both know the houses that back in the 50s or 40s that our grandparents had, and you'd go in and like their kitchen was built in the house.
Beautiful.
It was built from that
slabs.
House. Yeah, from nothing. And then you'd get into some houses where it was a little goofy, and you had one door that was like 17 inches and one that's 22, but it's like, we just made it work.
Well, even in Florida here, I mean, I the construction we did in Ohio. And my uncle was a fanatic about things. He was very good at things. And he was very business-like. He did very well. But his homes, like you say, people wanted to own his homes, even when they were sold on the secondhand market. Mm-hmm. I just saw one of his houses, I don't know, a 40-year-old house, 50-year-old house. I almost bought it in Ohio because it was his house. I thought, I don't know, there's something of, it's like a Frank Lloyd Wright house because there's some value of this contractor in Ohio that people know. And I think also, and I've said this to my realtors 100 times, they never put down who built this house on those sheets.
Right.
If you're a good builder, a solid builder, people know who you are.
Yeah.
Somebody they do if you're like a Ralph Twitchell or some famous architect in Sarasota or Ruth Richmond. Sometimes you'll hear her name around here.
Yeah.
But I don't know the names of all the
I would say in this town, I mean, I can count, a handful of guys that, I think do good, solid work. You know what I mean? And I think that
and their names should be on.
Yeah, and some of them are actually, but those are the guys that sit for the awards and they get the little,
Oh yeah, that's a game.
Yeah, exactly. But to me,
I'm talking about I need to know.
Yeah, well,
was this put together by, Mark Baldwin, Todd Johnston, was this a Coachman home? What is this house?
Well, sometimes
you'll see that because those houses do, and it's almost like a capitalistic thing where you understand that that's going to produce more money by naming who built the house.
Yeah, well, we used to. I mean, I that's what we've tried to do is stick to the, because I kind of call myself a boutique builder. I don't really we hold your hand all the way through. Like from beginning.
Does that cost me more?
No, actually, it's free. So it is.
It's got to cost.
No,
more.
It doesn't, because here's why. The benefit is, and this is what I wish more.
You have a different percentage than someone else, don't you?
No, I don't. Because here's the thing: is that I wish more builders would do this, because they'd be pulling their hair out a lot less. Because what happens is that when I'm involved in every decision that they make and help them make them, it makes my job easier. Which means I make more money, because the number of times that I get a set of plans and it was after, they had already had the architect and the draftsman draw everything up, and nobody has even talked about price, and I have to explain to them, I'm sorry, this is like way outside what you're thinking it's going to cost.
If you hold everyone's hand that you're dealing with, you're going to have a lot less time.
Well, that's why I said I'm a boutique builder. So the guy who's
not holding hands, he's putting out more product.
He could delegate.
Could he hold hands?
I mean, the guy he delegates
through a third party. You're sure?
Well, I mean, that's the same thing.
A delegation.
I mean, the designers do it, the decorators do it, the project managers do it. But I think that I have found that when there's too many chiefs and not enough Indians, you start getting a he said, she said thing, and then somebody's trying to blame somebody or somebody else, and makes it a lot easier in my industry, because for what I do, because it's me. If it's wrong, it's on me.
Yeah.
I know where to put the blame at.
It's true. I deal with people when I do corporate gigs for comedy, and it's the opposite. If I have to hold their hand through the entire gig, for me, the gig becomes too tedious and they're never pleased. I go, just trust me. What you want is entertainment, right? You want your crowd to be happy. Just let me do this. Don't suggest anything to me because I can't be who you want. Yeah. Like sometimes they'll at the last minute go, just be a fake OSHA inspector. I go, no, I could have done that 3 weeks ago, but I just can't pop it on right now.
Well, I mean, to me, when customers, especially in this day and age, when it comes to some of the people that are out there in the industry that are taking advantage of people, what I try to do is I try to build as much trust as I can. And I think that, it's a scary endeavor to hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars to a guy you think is supposed to be your advocate, but then turns around and says, oh, sorry, we didn't realize that wasn't in the budget.
It is very, I think it's easier when you don't have money to build a home. And you're borrowing it because you don't feel like it's yours. But if you're at that level, if you're buying a boutique home from you, most likely these people are paying cash in some ways. Yeah, either a big chunk down at least, or almost all cash. Yeah. So that's money directly out of their accounts. They can see and feel that. Yeah. So they have to have super trust in who they use.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but there's also limitations with the borrowed money too. Like it's if you have a set of plans, it's funny because the bank will come in and they're the ones that decide what the house should cost.
But I'm saying in that situation though, you're feeling like if you borrow money, I don't know how you feel about it, but back when you were younger, I don't know if you ever had that feeling. Oh, yeah. When I was broke, and I'm buying an $80,000 house in Sarasota with almost all the bank's money, I had the bank's money.
Yeah, it was.
I didn't feel any pain. I had $7,000 into it.
Well, yeah,
that was my down payment.
I was the same way. My first house was like $70,000, and you're thinking my mortgage is $450 a month. This is great,
Well, even then, I did not have that kind of money. I just didn't have it. I always in the beginning. No matter what I did, we struggled for cash because I was trying to do comedy also. Yeah. So it was tough. But the thing is, what I'm saying is that when people feel like it's their money, right? If they write a check out of their account versus the bank saying you're going to borrow from us, it feels easier. Yeah. It feels easier. So you want to make sure that, if you're going to spend money with someone, and the same for anything. If I hand money over to a financial advisor, that's tough. Yeah. I know it's a fiduciary and it's in an account, and that guy is going to do the right thing because he's backed by whatever, but it's still hard to write checks to people because trust. Yeah. Trust is the main thing.
Well, and even, as well as I do, it's kind of like, you can be licensed. That doesn't mean you're good at it, and that's the scary part, like doctors, you can have a bad doctor, but he's still a doctor,
The trick with this all now is even worse. This is a deeper subject, but everybody looks licensed.
Yeah.
Everybody looks like they can be, because now you used to know the authorities. You could create your own authority.
Yeah.
And then actually license people under your authority. I was thinking about this when green building became big.
Yeah.
And how you had the
remember
you had U.S. Green Building Council, who basically created LEED that was underneath them.
Yeah, but
I could have created Jimmy's Green Building Certificate.
Yeah.
And if you wanted one of Jimmy's Green Building Certificate, I had my own qualifications.
Right.
And if you met him, which could have been just $50, I could have issued a very authoritative looking seal.
Yeah. And that's kind of what it was at the beginning.
And that was greenwashing, and people were doing it. But I used to show all the different seals that were available.
Yeah.
Right? And that confuses people. In this world of information, we are confusing people. What is a license? When you ask someone, especially someone coming to you for your contractor's license, and someone shows them an occupational license, and people go, "Oh, okay. Well, that's not it."
Right.
That's not it.
Well, even people have asked me, they're like, "Oh, I thought there was just general contractor. There's other contractors?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's like 2 other,
Well, for those of you in Australia, which I hope there's going to be more.
Yeah.
But we have every trade almost under a license.
To some degree, yeah. Yeah, it's gotten better. I am the one that I'm actually happy about is home inspectors, that there's actually a license for that now. It used to not even have one. So
they've actually eased up on them now. Yeah. They don't have to do CE anymore after 10 years, which I thought they were going to do to contractors, because after you take 28 years with Carmen Ciricillo, isn't that enough? Haven't you learned enough?
There's always more to learn, and it's always funny. That's why. So
I think it's, what we try to do in the school is make sure that we got something.
Yeah.
Especially if I have my lawyers come in, they teach current stuff that is something that really helps give value to the class.
That was very beneficial for sure. I mean, obviously your class is beneficial, but that added into it is extremely helpful, because a lot of people don't know a lot about that. And that's, to us, you find out real quick that legality plays a really big role in what we do.
Oh, it's huge. It's all it is.
Yeah.
And, there's so much risk with legality that it's amazing that contractors and people don't understand what they have to do and take on to even think about being in the business, just from getting LLC or incorporated right off the bat. It's a big feat.
Yeah.
And then you have to deal with the payroll, the work comp, the insurances, and then suppliers.
And they are very unforgiving about
Who's
that
the worst?
stuff.
The suppliers, subcontractors, insurance. What is your biggest paperwork headache?
The building department. That's my biggest pain.
And that's one of the ones that we could fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easier than anything.
Well, the reason why is that they've slowed, like before you used to be able to get somebody on the phone, right? And now they've hidden everything away behind the websites, right? And so, if you call up, like I called up one time to try and get a hold of a plans examiner, and I said, well, I need to clarify something, and I can't really get that in writing, explain it well in writing. And she's like, well, I'm sorry, our plans examiners aren't available. And I just said, oh, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. I'm sure you can get somebody on the phone. She's like,
not available.
Yeah, not available. So, and not only that, you don't even get to email them directly through the website. You're just talking into the ether to somebody. It's like maybe it's Ray so-and-so, but it's not like they limit your interaction.
These are county employees.
Yes. But this is the same with the city. I mean, the city is actually better, but it doesn't really matter. This is all what everybody's moving towards.
But they haven't privatized it yet.
Well, they're looking to do that.
Because they're trying to get rid of employees too.
Yes. They're trying to, well, from what I understand is that they're moving a lot of the review to AI, and they're going to have that being done by, yeah. And then so it'll be
insane.
Right. And so what they'll have is they're just going to have maybe like 2 or 3 plans examiners that just handle the we don't understand it situations. And then once the AI learns that, they don't have to deal with it again. And then you'll have, hundreds of plans exams or, sets of plans being examined by AI. And then all of the inspections are going to be outsourced to third parties.
This is,
so
this has got to be somebody big in the background,
Sure.
right? Some big AI firm or subcontracting from a bigger AI firm going around. This is how red light cameras kind of infected the country.
Yeah.
It works in one little area, and they show that example to all the other counties. So this thing with AI in the building department is going to be shown. Well, this is one company or two companies that are running the entire building permit process now through AI.
I can say that the reason why I think it's becoming in hot and heavy in Florida is because of the hurricanes. Because you saw what happened around here. We got smoked, and the bureaucracy that's established right now can't keep up with that.
There's a problem with that, though, Mark.
Yeah.
You know that because we have money.
Right.
Why aren't they not funding it to look toward a future?
I think it's always the lowest common denominator. You know that. We look on it. Anybody in the world can look at, Amazon's website, you know what I mean, and how fluid and amazing that website is. You go to any government agency and it looks like it was built by a 3-year-old. It loads slow it's very hard to find.
But they took in $50 million to build it.
Exactly.
Where's the $50 million?
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is what discourages people from wanting to pay tax, from wanting to participate, and then wanting to quit.
Yeah.
That's what we have in the country right now. We need the Doge for everything because they got to come in. You got to look at shit. Even in your own household.
Right.
I'm Doge here in my household.
Well,
I go through the refrigerator. I go, there's 6 cartons of raspberries. 3 are moldy.
Right.
Did we need to buy 6?
Yeah.
In the beginning.
Well, because you have to work for your money.
We went out to dinner and we brought home 4 styrofoam things from whatever restaurant.
Yeah.
And tried to shove it into a refrigerator that is full of groceries that we bought that we're not cooking. So you have to have someone in the household go,
yeah, we have to be more efficient about this.
I'm very efficient. Because I've grown up in this situation where I needed to make money. Now I see this everywhere. It's still my money going out to for whatever it is, the governments of Sarasota, the governments of the United States. And I want to make sure they use the money correctly.
But here's the thing, just going back to your point about, people not knowing what people in construction, like their licensing or what they do, or are they legit or are they not legit? Now imagine you've got the government going after those same people and they don't even care. I'll just give you a local example. I had a friend of mine who was in charge
of... Will this pertain to Australia too?
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's any government agency, really. So she was in charge of purchasing for the government, right? So if the government needed something, our local government here, and they had said, we need a jumbotron or something like that for some event for the town, right? And so she goes out and she goes and gets a price on a jumbotron. And the next thing they say is, well, that company, how many people are they hiring? What's the racial breakdown?
Shit. The DEI?
Right. And so and this is all true. And so then they said, okay, but have they met all of these quotas? Do they have the right? Do they have all
that was coming down from a bigger authority.
Yes. And
Isn't that over?
No, it still goes on. But this was 10 years ago. And she said, the one thing that we were trying to buy, we could have bought for $7, and now we have to buy it for $45 because we can't buy from somebody that doesn't have all of these,
I thought we were trying to kill all this, so it's all merit based back to the capitalistic ways of supply demand. Who's the best?
Well, again,
we're getting rid of it, aren't we?
It's getting better, but I can't really say that. I feel like the bureaucracy is still there.
That to me, that's a bigger issue because if you can't clean up, I used to say this all the time in class because we worried about the state of Florida, but you better worry about Sarasota. And then you better worry about before Sarasota, your neighborhood. And before your neighborhood, you better worry about your family. So clean it up from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's a good point.
If you and your wife can't get along, don't you dare try to tell the commissioners of Sarasota how to get along.
Well, there was a comedian who said, Carmen
Ciricillo, was that it?
No, yeah, you probably would have said something like, but he said, stop talking about Ukraine. You can't even pay child support.
Right.
You need to worry about your own household before you start talking about this other stuff.
This is exactly why people talk about Ukraine, because they don't want to deal with their own shit.
Right.
I have a family that gossips and never addresses this shit in the room.
Right.
You go to the Sunday dinner and you hear the shit of the world, but I'm looking at everyone going, none of these people have a wife, a spouse.
There's a lot of stones
a lot of
being
children.
thrown.
Some of these kids don't talk to each other no more. I go, this is the wrong people to discuss diplomacy.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're doing.
Right.
So in construction, I always say, yes, the building department, first of all, and I said it was an easy fix. It should be an easy fix because, like, if your main headache is the building department,
right,
of your county, of your wherever you're at, that building department is what provides the permissions for the contractor to make money for the rest of the county.
Well, but also that it makes it. Here's the thing, right?
And if they don't give you permission, how does the county make money?
Right. Well, and here's the thing, right? So if you look at, let's say like you and I, right? Let's say we bought a house 30 years ago, which I'm sure we both have, right? Remember when we bought the house and there was maybe like 8 pieces of paper we signed, right? I bought my house about 3 years ago, and the stack of paper was an inch thick. Right?
And what is it now?
Well, I mean, it's
you accepting something.
Right. Well, I remember this is when I knew things were getting out of control, was when I had to sign a paper that said, by signing this document, you acknowledge that if you did not sign any other papers, that you will come back and sign those documents.
Holy smokes.
Yes, that's literally what the document said.
Wow.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about this in my comedy podcast about the Apple contract.
Yeah.
You ever watch South Park?
Yeah.
When they did
doing the accept the user
agreement.
it,
and it became that, what was that, Donnie?
I haven't seen
the centipede.
The only one of us.
You haven't seen that?
Yeah, it's
I've seen
the human centipede episode.
No,
where Cartman's mouth got stapled to Kenny's whatever, and it was because they agreed to it in a piece of paper.
Yeah, like they keep saying
when you agreed to it, you signed it.
Yeah,
I mean, I always think that if I go to court on something that I signed, I go, Your Honor, come on, how many things have you signed that you didn't read? And you're a judge. Do you think you'd have sympathy for me?
You know what's funny? I've actually gotten to the point now, and sometimes when I'm signing things that like I'm not 100% sure, right? Of what, like, if there's like some, legalese in there.
That's crazy,
right? But I would I can't remember what I would write, but it was something to the effect of, I signed this, but and something to the effect of, but I'm not waiving any rights, specifically waiving no rights, et cetera, to any specific.
And they would let you do that?
And they're like, yeah, okay, just sign that, because
under for what though?
Well, it's just like, just in case they try to turn around and go, well,
No, but who Best Buy let you do this? Who let you do this?
Well, I just mean like certain documents that, like when I'm in construction or something like that, I'd make sure that like,
you just did your taxes. Did you really read the whole thing? Did you go through all of it?
The good news is my buddy's a good accountant. He took care of that.
I know, but did you?
No, I wouldn't know what I was looking at anyways. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, I just got it too.
Yeah.
I don't know how many pieces of paper that is.
Yeah.
It's electronic now. And guess what? I don't have my glasses and it's on my phone. And it's due tomorrow. So what am I supposed to do, Mark?
Yeah.
I sign it.
Yeah, I know.
To be in compliance because they forced me to do this.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, what I don't like about the stuff that's happening now is the I don't know if this makes any sense or not, but to me, it seems like we're getting to the place where the cure is killing the patient. You know what I mean? Like you're in your attempt to try and save things, you're killing everything, and that's why it's just becoming so difficult.
Rise of the machines.
Yeah.
We knew this.
Yeah.
We
Get
watched
to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Who was the guy? John somebody?
Yeah.
The kid that was not supposed to be born?
Yeah.
It's a great sci-fi, and it was fun to watch, but if you're actually living it now,
right,
and then you go, holy shit, we saw that as a joke. I thought it was just a freaking movie.
Yeah.
It's real.
It is a little Orwellian.
It's real.
You're right. Yeah, it's a little weird.
Well, when it got down to during COVID and it was just too real how things were playing out for every Big Brother thing.
Yeah.
And I started really getting nuts because I was like, why isn't everybody getting crazy about this?
Fear has a very powerful...
They kept their mouth shut. Didn't someone tell you not to even do my podcast? Because it could be bad for you?
Yeah.
Someone's trying to talk in your ear and say, hey, man, are you sure you want to open your mouth up on it? That's fear.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I will say this, that like, I think that...
And whoever that person is, I hope you're well.
Yeah. No, she's an amazing person.
Okay, we know her pronouns, so we know exactly. We've narrowed it down to 50%.
But the thing is that I think that therein lies the problem. You know what I mean? We've gotten so worried about offending everybody that you can't say anything.
What if they threatened you? Would you still talk?
Would I still talk? Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
I mean, I got threatened this morning on X.
Yeah.
Someone told me, they gave me an analogy of someone committing suicide on a gun range. I'm like, huh. It's 7:30. Do I got to read this right now?
I
just got up.
I'm like,
what
what?
the hell did I say so bad?
Good morning to you too.
Right.
I just would have said that guy's really bad at aiming. If he went to a range and that happened,
Target's the other end.
It was some type of
because
analogy.
he didn't know to go to the range to do that. So
this kind of stuff happens in comedy.
Well-
and it's been happening before social, because before social networking, you're on stage live in front of humans with guns, by the way, in LA, who will pull the gun out if you have a joke about a tattoo or a prison,
Right.
which I used to do. And this has happened, but I didn't feel like it was that big a deal. Even to see a guy pull a gun out on me
Right.
was not as bad as what I feel now with all the people who have the amount of hatred is so heavy that is now suppressed people's ability to freely speak to each other because they're worried. Now, not.
I mean, to me,
For me, I don't feel like it's done that, but I do feel bad because I
we're-
think the country is now not saying much.
well, we're in a different generation.
People aren't
Like
saying
you
much.
and I grew up in a time where there were no cell phones. You know what I mean? There was a time when there was only one phone in the house.
That got scary too.
Yeah, and I just mean that. Like, I think what's happened is.
They're calling from inside the house.
Yeah, no caller ID. Who is it? But I think what it is like, social media just runs on hate. You know what I mean? Because
It definitely is. a
all
way-
it does is its whole mission is to provoke. That's its job. And because the only way, if it doesn't provoke, it doesn't sell ads.
Sometimes I do it.
No, I understand that,
I
but you're
provoke.
trying, but you do it. The whole beauty of the comedian, going all the way back for thousands of years, is like you're trying to bring light to real issues.
Like
You know
I
what
just
mean?
said, those girl astronauts that went up in space were
Yeah.
braver than any other girl astronauts I've ever known because
Yeah.
they did it without helmets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah,
Perry is not braver.
yeah.
She didn't have a helmet, Donnie.
Well,
That's brave.
She was there for 10 minutes.
When there's already people on Instagram that are saying, like, if you want me to believe that this happened,
Oh my God, I knew they were going to do that. Because
Yeah.
they did that on the other side with Elon.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure, they want everyone to have doubt.
Yeah,
Well, the way to not have doubt is to be there yourself.
Yeah.
And I've said this before. I was there, like when you're in your 20s
Yeah.
and your uncles talk about like World War II.
yeah.
And you're like, what the fuck's what's World War II? What are they talking about? Well, they were there.
No, I mean,
They were in the military. So it's a different game. I was alive and adult enough to understand 9/11.
Yeah.
But there's kids who were born in 2002
Yeah.
that don't know it firsthand. So
Well-
yes, I think that you have to be there for a lot of these things.
Yeah.
And understand that most people nowadays are trying to cause doubt in your head
Well, everything's
for multiple reasons.
Everything that everybody's experiencing now is through
How
a
tall
monitor.
am I? Do you have any idea?
I
how
don't
tall?
make judgment calls on that. I just
I'm
know that
5'9".
I might be a little taller than you.
I'm a liar, but
Depends
hey,
on- depends
I
on
bet
the
you I
shoes.
bet you I could trick people.
Yeah.
I could cause doubt in your head. And
You can't see
Make
his
you
lower
believe
half
it.
on camera.
Speaking
so-
of that, did you ever see the governor's shoes?
is that like the emperor's clothes? Oh, he's got lifts.
I'm pretty. Yeah, if you look carefully,
I don't think that it's
it's not
to
like
me,
it's not as an issue, but it's kind of like
what would bother me if you could actually see the high heel, like if he was like in
Oh, you
Gene
could.
Simmons boots every time we
it
Just
almost
8-inch
looks
tall
like that.
boots.
Yeah, it was
with
like
spikes. I'd be like, hey man, you're the governor.
Yeah.
you're not in a rock band.
You don't need this.
But if he's shorter, then he
Oh, I mean,
portrays. His wife could be taller. There's look, we short kings have a problem. We have a problem.
Yeah. Well, the first
We have,
step's
an, we, have an
admitting it.
attitude, we have an attitude problem. We've got a self-esteem problem. So if you can give us a boost, somehow make a shirt that looks better on us, something.
Well, I mean, I can tell you that there's been plenty of girls that dump me for shorter guys, so don't worry about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm married. What do you want me? I mean,
Well,
it's too late for this advice.
I don't get anything about that now.
Well,
Now
you
it's
know,
over.
I give him a cracker, and he's tearing it apart. Right? Oh, that's not a good enough one. I need something better than that.
Short on the construction site was always an advantage,
In attics, definitely. Yeah.
and not to the
All the
guy
AC
because
guys are
they would
looking
just
for you.
use me to go into crawl spaces or attics. Or you're lighter than everyone else. Good on the ladder.
Yeah.
My cousin, we had a ladder that was it was at least a 30-foot wood ladder
Yeah.
that my grandfather had used and kept outside. So by the time we got it for a painting job, that thing was brittle.
Yeah.
It was
Then
cracked.
You mean the one that you should have wrapped in caution and left off the job site? So
My
OSHA saw
grandfather,
it?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Do you actually think that and I was 15, 16, we just got our licenses. and we're doing these jobs. Do you really think that a 16-year-old kid gives a shit? If someone would have told a 16-year-old kid, let alone a 30-year-old man, that ladder's dangerous. You know how many guys I know that are 30 that would still get on it?
Oh, yeah. They'll get on it.
You know why they do it, though? Peer pressure.
Yeah.
All you got to do is give them one little, oh, you baby.
Yeah.
Do I got to do it?
Yeah.
Do I got to go get my grandma to do it?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, but then the next sound they hear is wee, wee.
And they finally learn.
Yeah.
It seems like, again, that's a first-hand bit of information. If you haven't broken your leg by falling off of a ladder and someone tells you a story about breaking your leg falling off the ladder.
Not the same thing, yeah.
It's not the same. You actually have to lose a leg to get the story.
Well, somebody was saying that a long time ago. They were like, you remember when we were in like middle school and grade school and like we probably knew 4 friends with broken arms or broken legs.
Yeah.
Like everybody had a cast at some point in school, and like that doesn't happen anymore. I mean, that's nobody wants anything to happen to a kid, but I'm just saying like we were a lot crazier.
So you discounted that, or you what is that word?
Well, I just mean like
he disclaimed it by saying
I
don't
would
want kids to get hurt, right?
Right, but I just mean
but he didn't have to say that.
Yeah.
But the world has put that pressure on you now, Mark, that you had to clarify to everybody else. Look, I love children, but the truth is, it has nothing to do if you love children or not.
Yeah.
You're right. The numbers show.
Yeah.
Is it really truly evidence, though? Maybe we should look up the number of kids that have broken their leg in 2024 versus 1984, and maybe there's a stat about that.
Yeah.
And then we could go, well, they do it differently. Maybe it's not a cast. Maybe the arms heal quicker with today's technique. I don't know, but you're right. I think that I don't see kids with casts.
I was in the hospital all the time. I mean, no joke. I mean, there was a funny point
Munchausen by proxy.
No, I wish that would have been easier, right? No, my mother was always like, they were all working, and I had 2 older brothers, so I was the smaller one. I got whacked around a lot, but we
they don't allow that anymore either.
No, well, it was mostly rough housing, but in any event, I had been in the hospital so many times.
Did you ever shower with a group of men?
No.
Okay, let's move on.
Well, yes, actually, in gym class.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
These guys.
Oh, yeah.
These guys that are younger never did it. They didn't do the group showers.
As young as 30, never happened.
And we also had corporal punishment back then too. So.
And you're 50, you said.
Yeah.
You're 12 years younger than me, and we had it.
Yeah.
So it didn't end until.
I think everything changed around.
You're born 73.
75 for me. Yeah.
Oh, 75.
Yeah.
Who the hell said I was only 60? I'm older than that. I just realized how sad. I'm 62.
Yeah.
So 75 for you. So you're 18 and 93?
Yeah.
So you're in high school. In that era, it's still corporal punishment.
It was
middle school?
In grade school it was. Yeah.
Catholic?
No,
regular old public school beatings.
Yeah.
The nuns weren't as bad as everyone makes them out to be.
No, I mean, it was...
Gym teachers in public schools, heavier hands. Way heavier hands.
But they were no joke, though. You know what I mean? Like, it was...
We had a guy named Popo. His name really wasn't Popo. We called him Popo. And he hated that name. And you would scream it down the hall, and Popo would come after you with those Governor DeSantis shoes. He had those big Herman Munster shoes with a paddle that he made because he was one of the shop teachers.
Yeah.
And he would beat the shit out of you. Yeah. He would do it in front of the whole cafeteria. You have to put your hands on the table, and he'd give you cracks. And we kind of used it as a credibility. Yeah. How many cracks you got this year?
Yeah.
And that kind of turns it into something different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where people don't view it as badly if you change it into a form of pride.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the thing is that, in a weird way, maybe it's kind of like this, toughens you up in a way. Like you get used to understanding that, the world isn't some pillow that you get to sleep on every night.
Well, you better not make a mistake.
Right. Like the
there's
consequences.
a consequence of this.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that's kind of gone away.
Look at the videos on TikTok of people, kids in Walmarts just smashing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And parents watching and they're like, we have to put an end to this.
Well, the part that blows my mind is that for some bizarre reason, we keep blaming inanimate objects for the things that people do, right? Like the gun killed somebody or the knife killed somebody, or if they had never been around these things, this never would have happened. And I'm like, no, it's that person that did it because they have problems,
I had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But not that many inanimate objects to use. I had to just use myself.
Well, I mean, like I said, I
Just throw myself on you. He's
Like-
touching me.
Well-
He's wrestling me. He's pulling my hair.
when we were kids, if we stepped out of line at our friend's house, their dad would smack us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nowadays, if somebody's going to jail.
I never smacked any of my son's kids,
Yeah.
friends.
You probably had
I
had some good friends then.
They had really good friends, but I never had to do that to any. And I don't know if I could have.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have, because unless something really, like they jumped on a baby or something, right?
Were they bigger than you? Is that why?
They're bigger than me. It's exactly right.
You never had somebody flip out on a house party or something like that?
Like on mushrooms?
No, I just mean like,
What kind of party
like
was this?
I just mean like when we were younger and like my brothers would hold, have some house party or something.
You had brothers.
Yeah. I mean,
You had older brothers.
yeah.
I was the oldest.
Yeah.
And I was small.
Yeah.
I had no authority.
Yeah.
I had 3 sisters that basically, it was the witches of Eastwick. They would do whatever they wanted. They would control me. And if I didn't do what they wanted, they would tell my father some story, and then he would beat the shit out of me later.
I don't think it was any different from mine. I just got the crap beat out of me by them
I think
too.
it was better for you because it actually, it molded you.
Yeah.
When you have brothers, I think it helps.
Yeah.
I think it helps because my big brother was my cousin Frankie. Right, he's in this room somewhere. There's his wedding picture with all the other.
Yeah.
These are all contractors, right? Rocco, he's a concrete guy. Ronnie, he's a commercial landscaper. Frankie's a carpenter, still doing it. Michael's an electrician. All these guys, all those guys were in construction.
Yeah.
But they played football during the wedding, during the picture taking. That's blue collars you get, right? They're all wearing expensive suits because they could afford it.
The cummerbunds really set it off.
They're silk. We're wearing silk tuxedos because Frankie came from Uncle Frank,
Right.
who made a shitload of money in construction.
Right.
So that was like at the top end of weddings. Casa di Borelli, 400 people, limousines, but the attitude was blue collar.
Yeah.
And if these guys, Frankie would wrestle you in that tux.
Yeah.
He ain't gonna stop. Well, he was basically my older brother, 2-3 years older than me. And if he wanted to wrestle somebody, then I wanted to wrestle somebody because he's my brother.
Yeah, we didn't get away with too much stuff though. I mean, like my dad always had this thing when he'd had enough. He was like, who wants to play my favorite game? And we're all like trying to get out of the room. And he's like, no, we're going to play. And you know what his favorite game was? Who wants to die first? So yeah.
Well, there's something about a father that is the stronger figure of all the children.
Yeah.
If you're a weak father,
Yeah.
the family's fucked. You got to have a strong dad.
Yeah.
Even if the dad's smaller. My wife's father was smaller than I was, but he was super intense.
Mine was like that too. We couldn't say yeah or whatever. If we everything ended in sir.
Yeah.
Like yeah. And he was serious as cancer if like you did not end a sentence with sir or something like that.
And he didn't have to touch you. You just
Yeah.
knew,
Yeah.
and you respect him for that.
Yeah.
And you also respect that he still felt that way no matter how old he got, even though when you realized he wasn't going to be able to do anything,
Yeah.
he still held his ground because he believed in himself.
Yeah, it was even like that with my mom, and my mom was 5'4". You know what I mean? Like
Sometimes the moms are
she'd look at me the
scarier.
wrong way and be like, and I'd be like, okay, that's shut up. Stuff
Even
like
my mother, who's here right now, she's in the house right now with us. She's always been. If she told me, Carmen, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Yeah.
That's it. We're done. I would play for, I put her in my Monte Carlo. I would do some burnouts, or I would spin her around in a bowling alley parking lot when it was snowing. And she would for a second, she would think it was fun. Then she's like, that's it. I'm done.
This is getting uncomfortable. I need to
We're
stop.
done.
Yeah.
Quit jacking around, right?
Yeah.
Because we did screw around. And I think the screwing around was part of what let steam off and would let everybody feel relaxed.
Yeah.
And no thing was too serious. Now these kids, I worry that they take everything too serious. They're not having enough fun, and it's going to seep out somewhere later on in some bad behavior way, something that's going to be detrimental to them.
Yeah. I think it seems like it's weird. Like it seems like justice nowadays is kind of like extreme in certain instances and then completely missing in others.
Right.
And it almost seems like it's like everything we used to do that we probably should have gotten in a lot of trouble for now is the stuff that they're saying, is like really bad. And like the little, like everything back then is backwards compared to what it is now. You can't, you can't get away with the same stuff, but this little thing you do, you're going to jail,
So you never worked for someone else? Did you ever work for someone that wasn't in the family?
I did. It's kind of actually how I got my start in construction in a way. My parents had gotten divorced and my dad moved to Missouri and I started working for basically the landlord. He was a contractor and, I'm ashamed to admit it, but like I was like 13 years old and I was out, running, siding with him. Back when
Wait, you said you're ashamed.
I just mean in the sense like I shouldn't have been doing it at 13.
But could you?
Were
you capable?
I nailed it. Yeah, I nailed it. In fact,
did you have a bicycle that you could, and you built ramps and you could jump on? Okay, so what's the difference?
Well, I just mean like,
Was he forcing you to work?
No, it's more like, when other kids are supposed to be getting an education, it seems like, they shouldn't be toying around with circular saws and standing on scaffolding.
The Amish do it.
Oh, I'm sure they do, but to me, it just, at the time I thought it was amazing. I mean, I still.
But now you said something though.
Yeah.
Did you really mean you were ashamed?
No, I just mean in the sense, I don't mean I was ashamed of it. I mean that.
You know that today
it would be.
They would shame you for
correct,
it.
yeah,
right? And this is the problem.
Yeah.
But you must have gotten something from it.
No, it was amazing. I mean, honestly, that was back when minimum wage, I think for me, was like $2.25 an hour. I was making $7. It was great.
What year was that?
Probably 89, 88.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, construction was paying about $10 an hour.
Yeah. And, I did good work for them. Even on the sidings, like it was like overlap this side, overlap western.
So how long did you work for someone else? And this guy, so your father's not around?
No.
Stepfather around?
Nobody's around anymore.
Just you and mom and...
Just nobody. It's just me now.
You're 13.
Well, no, back then, my mother was in Tulsa. My dad was in Missouri. That was it. That was just me.
Who
and
were
my
you
dad.
with?
Just my dad.
Oh, so you're with your father.
Yeah.
So your dad...
But he wasn't... That's not what he did. He was big into the DIY stuff that my parents did. Like, they were the ones that would build, like, little... He was like a woodworker more than he was a construction guy,
All right.
He
so
actually
your guide into this really was not the family business.
No. It was kind of like the facilitator, you know what I mean? It let me know that I was handy enough to do it. And then getting in from, with the construction with this guy kind of led into it. But surprisingly, it wasn't really something that I thought I wanted to do,
So you're doing siding, aluminum siding?
No, like old-fashioned cedar siding, yeah.
This is what state?
Missouri.
Okay, so Missouri at 13, and obviously this is something to make money on the side.
Yeah,
right? You're not doing this is not an aspiration.
Yeah, no, I was
but
trying to get
at some point, construction becomes an aspiration for you. Where is that?
I think it comes in a couple ways. I think it's the reward of doing something with your hands and seeing, that you did something. I think part of it is that you don't realize it when you're younger, but you're actually building a lifelong skill. You know what I mean? This is stuff that you're going to carry with you till you're 90, I mean,
you have 40 more years.
Yeah. And it's like, you think about, a lot of these people, they don't realize how important these skills really are. It's like how to fix a toilet or how to fix a door or how to fix a cabinet handle or, and especially in an industry where there's becoming less of us, and every time somebody comes out, I mean, you know what it is like, so, if you can, your wife says, I don't know what's wrong with the garage door, like it's just not closing right. But the handy guy can fix it and save himself $500.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the part actually that was the most exciting to me. And this applied to almost anything, even probably you, is like, you're working on your car. Everybody knows how to change their oil, they know how to change a filter. They know how to, and it just starts growing in whatever interest that you have.
YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube is the ultimate teacher.
Yeah, it has helped a lot. There's been a few.
You probably, and I see this to a lot of contractors, probably could have a killer YouTube channel.
I've thought about it. In fact,
could.
And the funny thing is when I was talking to my brother about this concept of doing it, is that you'd have like how would you put it? Like two different personalities, but you play the same role, where you're the serious contractor that knows what he's doing, but then you play the other guy that's just I don't know what I'm doing.
That's comedy.
Yeah.
You're doing comedy.
Yeah.
But it's I think just you showing, believe me, I have looked at enough stuff, whether it's automotive, the toilet, the house, whatever. If there's a decent channel and the guy shows you without a lot of fluff in the beginning, a lot of guys are they're trying to get length so they can get more commercials, but get to the point,
right,
and show me how to fix it. That kind of guy is getting a lot of play today. Yeah. That kind of guy becomes the authority figure on the internet.
Yeah,
and someone with true skill that you can show on the internet. You would have a monster channel. It is probably one of the greater ways of advertising your business also.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, I actually have all the stuff to do it, and I was planning on circling back to it to do it. But, the one thing that I would say, getting back to that original point you said about, what do you say to the guys? What would they want to hear about being in construction? And I would say, the best thing about it is that if you're a curious person, right, and you like to learn about stuff, there's nothing better than this, especially for a guy, because honestly, at the end of the day, you're going to know how to fix your air conditioning system. You're going to know how to fix your house. You're going to know how to help people. Mm-hmm. You're going to be able to do stuff for your mom, for your dad. You're going to, you know what I mean? Like, it's an ongoing joke, but like the worst thing that you can be is a guy with a truck who can build. You know what I mean? Because you're either going to be asked to move something, fix something, or, But I mean, as much as I may hem and haw about it, I love the fact that I can, and more to the point, what I'm saying is that I think something that's kind of missing from contractors now is they don't really know the trades anymore that they hire, right? Like they can't actually do drywall. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can, but can they do it as well as the guy who's putting it up? Right. And I learned all of that. And that was the crazy part about being in construction from, like 18 up until I was 28. I thought, believe it or not, before I'd gotten licensed, I thought I'm supposed to know how to do all this stuff, right? And then I get my license and I start doing it, and I come to find out that the vast majority of guys, they don't do it. They just make phone calls.
Paper contractors.
Yeah.
So
which is nothing wrong with that.
What would be the value of you knowing how to do drywall to hire a drywall guy?
Because then you know what quality is. You know what I mean? Like the one thing with drywall, that if you do a sheet of drywall, right? And the guy comes in and he muds it, and then you think it looks good, and then he paints it, and you can see all the drywall tape marks, right? But when you're skilled enough to do drywall, you already know, no. You know what I mean? That's not right. Or like, me laying tile, 32 years ago. I've had guys that come out and, the first thing out of their mouth is like, oh, I've been setting tile for years. And they'd come in and I'd say, okay, I'll watch them for like 15 minutes. And I'm like, I can tell from the material they use, the way they spin it up, the way they lay it down, and how they handle the tile. Like, this guy knows what he's doing or he doesn't, And I've had guys that within 15 minutes, I'm like, look, thank you for your time, but it's not going to work out. And they're like, why?
So you're watching the process.
Yeah. And I'm on site all the time with my jobs. I'm literally every project I'm on there at least once a day, every house. You got to know what's going on.
There's no possible way to learn all the skills to be knowledgeable firsthand for every trade in construction. So what's the other way to almost guarantee that you've hired the right subs? Is it just credibility?
Work for somebody that you really respect and you think does, good work as well.
No, for you, for the general contractor. How do you find subs? Even, you're not an AC guy. How do you know which AC guy?
I don't. That's the hard part. It's the same thing for us. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a crapshoot, but that's why I have to watch them closely at the beginning. And then I can be like, but some of it also is kind of like the way they present themselves. Sometimes it's, that they're saying the right things that you've heard before, that somebody knows what they're doing. Like, for instance, I was joking with the electrician the other day, and, even though nobody's really going to see what's behind the panel, I know what's behind the panel, right? And so you want to see like very precise wires going into very precise locations. And like when an inspector comes on the job site, I'll be honest with you, not that an inspector would overlook anything, But an inspector, if he looked at your electrical panel and he saw everything was tight and nice, and he walked in and he's like, "Oh, you're missing a few ground screws and that box isn't made up," you're good. You're fine. But if he comes in and he sees a rat's nest in your panel, nah.
If you hired an apprentice that took a right angle drill and drilled at different heights into the studs, so the wire went from low to high to low to high, like I used to do.
Yeah.
When I first was doing it for my cousin, he's like, we got to run this all through all these studs. And I had never done it. I'd never even used a right angle drill yet.
Yeah.
And so my wire went a little low, and then I got a little higher, and then it went a little lower, higher, right? And he's like, "That's shit."
Right.
I go, "Who cares? It's behind the drywall."
Right.
But he goes, "I care."
Yeah.
And the inspector knows my work.
Yeah.
But I'm 20-some years old, and I'm arguing with like a kid who's 20-some years old. And at that point, I'm thinking, in my mind, how important was that? It wasn't too important for me at that time, but it was super important. And that's what I'm saying. That guy, my cousin Michael, who was an electrician, who still is to this day, he already had this pride built in to because someone had taught him. He was teaching me.
Yeah.
I had to have someone my age teach me something that I felt like that should not be. It was like he did not have that authority because he was my age.
Right.
But it doesn't matter where you get it.
Well, it comes down to a lot of categories. It could be a golf swing. It could be construction. It could be anything. If you practice bad habits, you're going to continue bad habits.
I agree with what he did. I'm saying, like, I'm glad you brought that up because think about it. You got some guys out there like my son. He's 25.
Yeah.
He's basically doing pre-construction, right? Then he gets into the superintendent spot at 25.
Right.
He's got guys that he's running. He's subcontractors that are 60 that have to listen to a 25-year-old kid.
I have the same problem.
We all do.
Yeah.
Because you want what you want.
Yeah.
When you're 60, you think there's an 80-year-old.
Yeah.
That's supposed to tell you what to do.
No, but I mean, like, if you're respectful, I mean, like, when I was 28 and 30 and I'm running trades, you know what I mean? Those guys were in their 50s and 60s. Be respectful,
Absolutely. But there still is a hump.
Yeah.
And whether you get over it,
well, you're going to get
when
hazed.
you're 40
you're going to get hazed.
there's some point, even the old guy still hasn't got over it.
Yeah.
And he's 50.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets over it when he's my age, 60. There's some things at 60 that I'm still thinking that I'm learning.
Yeah.
That I should have known because I'm watching my kids who already know it. My daughter runs a factory in Baltimore. She's an engineer. She has like 28 people underneath her. She's only 27.
Yeah.
And they keep moving her up because she's organized. She's a team player. She doesn't jack around. She has a purpose. She was always someone that was very organized and wanted to be the one in charge.
But I see that. But here's the thing.
And she's not partying.
Yeah.
We had a lot of shit in the 80s that led us astray.
Yeah. Well, we had, we're cut from a very different kind of place. So,
And I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
You say there's no broken legs. I go, well, my kid doesn't get into trouble. Should I be worried that they're not in trouble enough?
Maybe I think what we're dancing around is that for some reason it's like nowadays people think making mistakes is a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, us messing up super hard was like our way of learning. Don't do that again. And now what we've done is kind of created this ultra safety net everywhere where, people kind of get the gist, but they've never really been burnt bad enough that it really makes them want to not do something. You know what I mean?
No, you're right.
In a weird way, it's kind of like that's what helps us advance. You know what I mean? Is like
it's what science is, right?
Yeah.
When we were talking about science during COVID, everyone said it's science, but science is fluid.
Right.
It is the process of experimenting. So you can't learn without experimenting. Well,
and it's also not, it's nothing. It's not, it's not fact yet. It's not undeniable, undisputed fact. You know what I mean? Everything in science is still up for debate in some form. You know what I mean? And, and I know that's kind of a limited way of saying that, but I just mean that there's always room to know more,
I feel bad for the people who take the mocking too seriously.
Yeah.
If Elon Musk actually took the beating and took it to heart because one of his rockets blew up that he's trying to experiment with rockets.
Yeah.
It blows up in the sky, and then all this hate pours out. What he did and how much money, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to try this because we need to figure out how to do it properly. There's planes that fall out of the sky still to this day. Nothing's perfected, but we have done a great job in making sure that it's 99% safe.
I tell people all the time, I say, especially younger people, and they're kind of down on themselves about something that happened or whatever. And I said, let me tell you something, man. I've learned far more from my mistakes than I ever did my successes.
You know, if you're doing demo and you hit a breaker box and you didn't kill the panel and you get shocked, you'll learn to make sure you check the panel every time now.
Well, and the good news is I think there are people out there right now that are starting to say, like, look, you should start falling in love with failure. You know what I mean? Because that's the best teacher. If somebody, if you're going to be like, even Elon had said at one point, like, if you're going into entrepreneurship because you want a pat on the back, don't. You're not going to get it.
Have you ever lost money on a job?
Oh, hell yeah.
That you thought, no way in hell I'm going to lose money on this job?
Yeah.
Is that the teacher for you?
Yeah, but it's all a teacher. I mean, like, I think the one thing about construction for sure is that it is unforgiving in a lot of ways. Like if you're an attorney, and you have a typo or something, you can just refile it, in construction, I'll give you, for instance, the other day, my roofer had done several houses for me, and, it's more modern, flat, TPO, flat vinyl roof. And he shows up with the drip edge, and I wanted like the real big, thick, whatever, which he did, but it's got this little 45 bend down at the bottom. And I looked at him, I'm like, do you think I'm building a Costco or something here? Like, no, dude, you've done 2 of my houses with this other, so why would you bring this? Mm-hmm. And he looks at me and he's like, oh man, that's like $3,000. And I go, yeah, it is. So
you gotta eat it.
You gotta eat it, I said, better.
It's not going up, and you're not paying for it.
I said I said be glad that I caught it while you brought it in. You don't have it installed, because then you'd really be pissed. So.
And you have to be that guy.
Well,
how did you feel about that? Because this is the world of touchy feely, right? Where people now he probably used that on you, like he wanted you to forgive him and cut us some slack. And
no.
Would you cut it in half?
No.
Yeah, I'll pay $1,500. You pay $1,500. No. How are you with that? I'm straight ahead.
No,
this is how it's going to be.
I'm 100% unforgiving in that category, because I always look at it in the sense of intent. You know what I mean? It's like if it's one thing if you're an employee and you mess up, that's my fault, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm teaching you. But if you've decided to go out and get a license, and you're the license holder, right? And you're the one on. No, dude, you should know your game.
And he'll never bring that drip edge again.
No, he won't. Great guy though.
He'll probably appreciate it. Was he mad?
Yeah, he wasn't happy. And here's the funny part: he's a boxer. You know what I mean? So
there's there's always intimidation.
Yeah, and I had to look at him and be like, "No, man, no, this ain't gonna work." Yeah,
that's interesting, because people will play upon who they are.
Well, here's the one thing that's interesting about construction, at least from my perspective.
Because you told him that boxers shouldn't cry.
Yeah.
Did you hear me, boxer?
Yeah.
We're challenging the boxer.
Yeah. But at least in my arena, we don't have political correctness. You know what I mean? Not in construction.
Is that true 100%, you think, except for big corporations?
I think like big time builders that like they're doing a commercial, like it's like a corporation that's doing it. I'm sure that's in play, but it's not in play on the job site. I don't care what job site you're on. There's still the jokes and the slams and the pranks, and
no matter how much training they force you to go to.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I saw one the other day, like this guy had what are those, the big circular diamond saws that they use for cutting concrete and, pavers and stuff. And they'd gotten a young kid and they said, look, you need to jumpstart that, And he's like, well, how do I do that? And he's like, well, you put it on the ground and you run, and, and he's trying to start it, Or like the old standbys, like, do you have the board stretcher?
Oh, yeah.
Where's the board stretcher?
But there's got to be some new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Porta potty pranks.
That's still in play. Yeah.
Backing up the truck to the door, 100%. Dropping stuff in the vent. It's happened. And why does that happen?
Well, honestly, it builds teamwork. You know what I mean? Because it builds camaraderie. You know what I mean? It gets people to be like, hey,
it's a man thing.
We're in this together.
It's a man thing.
Yeah, like
this doesn't happen with women.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know how women torment each other, but it's not this. It's more underhanded. kind of low-key sarcasm that men don't get. Because,
I mean, truthfully, with guys, if we mess with you, we like you. You know what I mean?
Right.
If we don't mess with you, we don't.
I try to explain this to the younger generation. When I played football, again, I should not have been playing football with Iowa boys. I'm 5'5". Okay, I was 5'6" and 3/4", but I'm small. Yeah. These guys are not going to cut me any slack. They're going to try. They're going to try their best to grab me, tie me to a tree.
Yeah.
Fucking shove the icy hot in the jock strap. They're going to do all that because they like me.
Yeah. If
they didn't do it, I would feel left out.
They wouldn't waste their time with it.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that how you're supposed to be? As a guy, and I say the reason why are we doing that is because I think in a way that men aren't supposed to be, it's not supposed to be conversational only. Men actually have a physicality about them. That's why construction works so well.
Well,
that job helps to get a lot of steam blown off where you don't have to go to a therapist and talk through it or try to fix it. It's not going to work. The only way it's going to work is even if you're not in construction, go work out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like to me, I mean, I would say it is great to be able to build stuff and be like, yeah, I'm a guy's guy, I guess, if you want. I've got a truck and I fix stuff.
But why do you have to torment the young guy?
The funny, I don't even look at it as tormenting. I look at it as, you're paying your dues, kid. Like, because here's the thing.
So it's a rite of it's something that has to happen.
Well, I can tell you, like, the hazing that I got when I was a kid was way different than it is
so
now.
Are we becoming weaker?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's weaker.
Why can't we do the old hazing?
Yeah, I mean, but when I was in construction, right, I can tell you that I was probably about 70 pounds lighter than I am right now, right? And there were multiple times with the guys that I was working for, and they were dead serious. They were like, that's too much money to be standing around, get to work. Yeah. Or there's even instances where I've had they were so hardcore that even if there was nothing to do, they would make me stack boards and then relocate those same boards to the other side of the job site.
You're giving me examples of different hazing. And let me tell you something. It's not just limited to the construction industry, right? So for example, in comedy, if someone used to die on stage, we would send ketchup as a symbol of blood that you are fucking losing and dying in front of it. And we would try to make you more nervous. Now it's a bunch of young comics talking about supporting each other and staying in the room and clapping. And I go, no. It's not about that. If nobody wants to see my show, I don't want a bunch of comics sitting there watching it. You can go home. You did your thing unless you really want to stay. I don't want someone to pretend they want to watch me. I want someone to be there because they want to be there.
Right.
And in that business, there was hazing even at a certain extent. And it was a rite of passage also.
Well, so in that...
But why have we stopped doing this? Why is this such a bad thing?
If I was to say, I think people are, somehow avoiding pain. You know what I mean? Like, did you ever see that thing by Rocky when he was talking to his kid about, the world's a mean, nasty place, and no
Rocky
matter,
Five?
Rocky it was the one where, he was, I think it was the last one basically, but he was basically, there's a great YouTube clip on it, but he says, let me tell you something you don't already know. The world's a mean, nasty place, and it will beat you to your knees, and, if you're not willing to, if you're not willing to take the hits, you know what I mean? You're never going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? And he basically says, life isn't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep getting back up. How much you can take, how much you can keep moving forward. And I think that's the thing that's missing is we're not challenging people.
But we don't want to prepare the youth for the hazing. Like, don't give them the speech and then haze them. It's got to be a surprise.
Right. That's the best.
And the thing is about this, and I think here's the problem. Lawyers have destroyed the country. Because someone will say, oh, what did he do to you? Well, we're going to sue that. See, that's the problem. The underlying problem is not the pain or the fear. It went after money. So you can't tease a person because now you possibly might get a lawsuit or a harassment suit. There's a kid on YouTube that does these pranks, and I had to laugh because he goes up to a horse he goes up to a cop on horseback, and he says to the cop, "Can I pet?" And the cop goes, yeah, and he pets the cop's leg. And the cop can't even laugh. He goes, You know, I could bring you in for sexual harassment. I go,
oh God, yeah, like, yeah. I mean,
why have we lost our sense of humor?
Like I said, I think that, you know, a lot of social media is just making people sad and angry. You know, it's like everything.
It made me angry and sad.
Well, I mean, and this might be a bit of a reach, but I think our generation was, you know, we did not come out of something, but our parents came out of it, right? So my dad was like World War II, right? And so when those people came home, right, and the big baby boom happened and all that, I think those people were like, we have been through hell. Mm-hmm. We don't want to deal with any more crap.
So let's have some babies.
Let's have some babies. Let's have some babies. Let's live in some houses. Let's do some amazing things, right? Because they knew what it was like to be, like to fight this, you know, horrible thing. And I think that for whatever reason, the society now doesn't have anything to measure against, right? Because they're like, well, we don't have anything to fight about, so let's fight about the little stuff, you know?
Do you think that if the average 25-year-old who doesn't really want to work too hard, and we need him in construction, the way to get him into construction is for him to have a baby?
Oh, I can definitely say that. I mean, that's uniform against for everything. You know, family guys always work harder.
So it's responsive. Will he take care of the baby though? That's the thing. Is it a different generation? Because
if he's got
if
a good role
baby
model,
in the 80s or the 90s,
yeah,
is that different than today?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's no guarantee that this kid will work hard and try to support the family.
Right.
Now, that happened in the 70s with my father. He did not give a shit about the family. Yeah. So he had 4 children.
Yeah.
And that wasn't enough to hold his feet to the fire.
Yeah.
So it's not a guarantee, but because I know that I've gone through it.
Yeah.
Did you go through it yet?
What, like
children?
No children.
So you don't even know real pain yet, Mark.
Yeah.
A real responsibility. Yeah. You're talking about subcontractors with crappy.
The funny thing is,
what kind of channel was that? Drip Edge.
Yeah.
Your biggest problem in your life is crappy Drip Edge. I have children.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, and one of them's coming home tonight. And we're preparing the whole day for it.
No, when I was young and I was like, you know what, meet the right girl, you know, have kids, da 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 da. Yeah. I was, you know, I was close, you know. But it didn't happen. And then, you know, some other stuff happened. And then, you know, life gets in the way. But I can tell you that, like, now that I'm 50 and I'm seeing what my friends go through with kids, and I don't mean that like I feel sorry for them or anything, but it gives you a whole different perspective to realize that, like, you know, when you're younger, you think that it's like, oh, I meet, you know, boy meets girl and they fall in love and, you know, everything's hoity-toity. But then, you know, like one of my great friends that I was in middle school just came down and he has 4 kids. Mm-hmm. And just the way that he talks is completely different than a friend of mine who has no kids. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because to him, everything that he says always kinds of centers around family. Right. You know what I mean? It's like, well, the kids and, you know, the one's going to college and this one's doing this and, you know, and I've got to do, you know, and so he doesn't really, it's almost like he's not talking about him anymore. Mm-hmm. He's talking more like he's a part of them. Right. You know what I mean? And that's his role within that thing. You know, and that's something I definitely cannot. It's
proximity.
Yeah, I can't relate to that in that sense.
You talk about construction.
Yeah.
Because you're around construction.
Right.
Guys with wives talk about their wives and children. Yeah. It's all proximity to what you're dealing with, what you're around. Yeah. Right. I mean, you could break out of that. There's ways to break out of that, but I think people know that they're doing it. Yeah. Because I think about this a lot. Do you understand who you are, what you're talking about, what you want, where you're going, and how much time you got in life? You know, these are big questions that I think when you're doing a lot of analysis. Yeah. In comedy, everything is like, okay, why this? Or how is this going to play out? What if this was interchanged with that? Yeah. And we're trying to look for the comedy in it, right? Yeah. So it's all about when you're really caught up in these moments, and someone who is caught up in a present moment who really does enjoy his family. God bless you, man. Yeah. If you can do that and you're really happy with that, it's only if you're doing it as a way to kind of not talk about something else where you don't really mean what you're saying. Like if there's something else in your brain, that you can't wait to go out there and bang broads. If there's something else going on in your head, but you're talking about family to shield yourself from doing that, then that's a sad man. Yeah. If this guy really wants to go to the Cheetah Club, or he wants to hang out with Amber and Tiffany and do some Cocoa Puff with Rocco, you got a problem.
Yeah.
But if he really does care, like I really became a family guy.
That's what I'm saying.
I was super involved in it, but I didn't. It's a burden to do. I think we all have an obligation when we talk to each other.
Right.
I'm not going to unload to you.
No, that's different. I just mean
my kids and my wife, and even if it's great, what I want to know about you is, the shit guys like to do, and it comes down to ball busting again, right?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. Like, so even though. Just to that very point, right? When the guys come over, like I have this place upstairs, in my house that I was going to turn into like something, I don't know what, right? And then I turned it into like a man cave,
fun,
right? And so, I set up like blackjack table, beer, whatever up there. It's great. You can come over, and
we're in.
And anyways, with all of that. When the guys come over, and I mean, I have friends that, in all different aspects of life. Some are single, some have kids, some have different jobs, some own things, some run things, whatever. But at the end of the day, they all do the same thing. We get together, we don't talk about shit other than having a good time and busting on each other. That's it.
Those are friends.
Yeah.
My friends don't want to hear about my wife and kids.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, maybe that's the cathartic thing with women is that they talk out all their stuff. The catharsis with men is like, we don't want to talk about it because we went through it. We don't want to relive it, right? We just want to have fun and kind of get away from it.
So let's bring it back to the construction industry with that idea. Is that a catharsis to go onto a job site? It's 99% guys.
Yeah.
You're building something with tools that is a logical process that you can't screw up. So you can easily see the mistakes. There's impressions that you have to make upon each other because you want to be the best. I don't care who you are. You want to impress your peers. You're doing that, and it's super satisfying if you complete all of those different aspects. Every day you got this to go to.
Yeah.
You're going to that room you're talking about above your house, basically.
Yeah.
But instead of playing cards or whatever games, you're actually doing something that's fairly important.
Yeah.
That has meaning, that produces income. And that, by the way, wasn't too easy to get to that spot. That's the stage.
Yeah.
If it's comedy, we're trying to get onto the big stage in front of the big crowd, in front of the big audience. If you're in construction and you've brought yourself to a level where now you're somebody putting together something pretty important. If it could be a building downtown, it could be a house for a client. It's one of the most important things for this person. That's the big stage. You got there somehow.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you got there. Doesn't matter if you went to college, didn't go to college. Doesn't matter if you ended up for 3 years in the can and came out and fixed your life, or you were a heroin addict, or you were married and you got the. Doesn't matter. No one cares how Joe Flacco got back off the couch and almost brought the Browns to the Super Bowl 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They don't care how Dan Marino wasn't picked in the 86 draft until last. It doesn't matter. And these things I don't even know about. I don't know about football.
Right.
I know about greatness and luck and persistence and perseverance. And I think about all the motivational speakers that talk about this. And that's exactly what everyone has to understand. When you're young, I hope you get it at a certain age after that. But when you're young, you're trying to think of, this ain't going to happen for me. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know where I'm going to be. I'm hoping. But if older people talk about this and tell them, because again, firsthand knowledge is the best. I was there and I saw it work.
Yeah.
And I think it could work for you. Get into the job. If you want to be any trade today, come on. You're gonna kill it.
Yeah, that's
you're gonna make money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm like again,
and you're gonna have pride, and you're gonna have everything we talked about.
Yeah, but going back to like you said, the construction thing, I think it's great. I think you should. That's what I would tell younger people. Yes, definitely get out there, learn something, do it. You know what I mean? Because what I love, even though I'm the guy that's now kind of running everything, and I don't get to necessarily put on the t-shirt and the shorts anymore and wear the belt or whatever.
Wait, what is? T-shirt, belt, and
I just mean like a construction.
Yeah,
outfit.
I know. I just wondering what you're wearing.
No, it's not the YMCA. But I just mean that even then on the job site, nobody cares because it's the guy thing. Like we don't care that this person's this or that person's that. Everybody wants to be on. Like how many? For a fact, guys will drive by a construction site who don't know anything about construction and be like, "Man, that'd be really cool to be over there doing that." Yeah. And like we're in it, and I'm stepping out of it, and even now I'm kind of like, man, I kind of wish I could be on the job site again a little bit.
To wheelbarrow concrete around a pool.
Yeah, as stupid
and
as that
be able to
yeah.
do it. And first of all, like you said, right?
Yeah.
We don't care who does it, but
Yeah.
if that's the guy who knows how to do it, or if that's the woman who, I don't care who it is, right?
Yeah.
You need that guy to make sure he doesn't dump a load of freaking concrete into the pool.
Yeah.
Right? And to watch a guy do it who knows how to do those things perfectly, those skills. When I just work with my cousin in Cleveland. You were talking about drywall, brought it back up to me. He makes his own tools and templates and shit when he does stuff.
And that's a skill.
So it becomes a process that he knows, and it's quick and clean. And if you screw up his process, you don't get to work with him no more. You go get the broom and you could sweep up.
Yeah.
But, you know, he is so good at doing something. When he put down, I forgot that system that they're using in the showers now, it's Schluter, right? So he's putting it down in one shot. He fits it in one cut. Yeah. You know, and I challenge him to do it when I'm like, I want to see this done in one cut, Frank. Make everything, the drain, every cut perfectly, right? Right. He loves when that comes together.
It's a skill, yeah.
And to watch it, and then me and him together, just me and him are having a good time doing this.
No, it's the best. That's what I'm saying.
We're not out drinking. We're not out in limos anymore. We're not out looking for women. We're actually working together on a job site, and I'm super satisfied doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I get as much enjoyment of hanging out with the boys, fixing like their house, as I would going out to the bar and having a drink with them. You know?
It's even better.
Yeah, because we can bring the bar to the house.
It's even better. Exactly. And everyone's seeing they're very pleased with the outcome. Yeah. You fix someone's home, or you built a bar in their home, or you put down tile in their home, versus we got to get Cruz out of jail again.
You know what? Just to end, this one thing I wanted to tell you. You know, one of the best things about being a contractor, though, is that everybody needs me. I'm serious. Like, you know, not everybody needs, a seamstress, or I just mean in the sense of like when you can fix and do things, you know what I mean? Suddenly your accountant bill is lower. Oh, you know what I mean? Like your other things that you need done. Oh, you want to trade? You know what I mean? Oh, you need that fixed.
Absolutely. Nobody needs a comedian. Trust me. I don't get a lot of, hey, we need you to come over and make us laugh for a second.
I'm willing to trade with you. You want to come over and do a stand-up?
But I hear you, man, on that, because I think one of the things I read about men in general is they want to be needed.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you ever, I'll point this out to my wife every so often, who I do not want to be. I do not want to be that guy. It's the grandpa. Yeah. Who's the last now. The first is his daughter, who's either pregnant or has a stroller and is pushing. Those are the most important people. Now that's the future. Yeah. Followed by her husband, or no, I'm sorry, probably followed by the mother. Yeah. Followed by her husband, and then maybe some peripheral, and then the old man. The old man who's retired. Yeah. He pays for everything. He doesn't have any. He's the guy. He's the knight that had to put his sword down. There's no more fighting. There's no more accomplishing or conquering in that guy. I don't want to be that guy. Whatever. I don't want to turn into that guy. I would rather not go to the mall with you. Yeah. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to try to fix something. Yeah. Or I'm going to try to do something that I can still do physically or mentally, because I cannot stop accomplishing. I've tried it. I've tried it.
I can't do that either.
I've tried it. I've tried to rest. I can't go to the beach for very long.
We can take breaks. You know what I mean?
That's it.
But that's it. You start to go a little stir crazy.
And I can't, I can't drink to cover that up, because that's going to kill me. I have to figure out for the rest of my life something
you need to
valuable
be of use.
to do. Of use. And that's it. You're right. Yeah. And having a truck. Thank God I know that you got a truck still. Yeah. Going to need that later. But yes, having a truck, very important. And
trailers
having
are even
skills.
Better. I have three. Okay, so joking, all kidding aside, I have three things in my life that I can't live without. Obviously, I'm single, so it's a little different. But one is my dog, right? I love my dog. Yeah. Number two is my hot tub, especially at my age. Got to have that. And number three is my dump trailer. That is the greatest thing in the world. You joke.
The dump trailer.
Yes, it is the greatest thing in the world, because like anytime you've got to move something and you have to unload something quickly, and you know what I mean, it's great.
That is who you made a commitment to. Yeah. Not a wife.
Yeah. I think I'll get the ring soon.
The dump trailer.
Yeah, the dump trailer.
That's funny, man. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I think whoever told you not to come on, you did so well. Yeah. She has nothing to worry about.
Yeah. Well, we'll edit it properly and get me in trouble.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.